Let's start with the headline. Trade truce extensions are all very well, but are the US and China moving towards a deal?
I think that they are. I think that things have been choreographed very well. We've seen a sequence of events that have gone through, Rubio and Wang Yi met, rare earths resumed, Chinese student visas, H-20s, there was that semiconductor merger, and then the events that you just recounted that have happened today. These are not happening by accident. These are happening in a planned sequence, and there are two tracks. There is a trade track. A lot of these things are moving along the trade track, but there's also a summit track. And that's why the choreography, I think, that all of this is keyed to a summit probably in late October around the margins of APEC.
Is this going to wash with Beijing? Is China going to go for this?
Oh, I think so. I think Trump is more interested in the trade track. He wants to cut deals and get wins for the United States. Whereas I think the Chinese are more interested in the diplomatic track, which is about stabilizing relations with its greatest adversary. So I think much of the value to the Chinese is that stabilization, while during the trade negotiations, they're going to do their best, as they always have, to grant as few concessions as possible and reform the Chinese economy as little as possible.
Let's just unpack the agriculture aspect of this. Yesterday, President Trump said he wants China to quadruple purchases of US soybeans. Is this a condition for extending the trade truce? And is it feasible for Beijing to even comply, Jeff, when China seems to be well diversified in terms of its soybean supply options, whether it's from Argentina or from Brazil?
Well, before Trump's first administration, China bought most of its soybeans from the United States. And since that trade war, they've diversified, and they now buy, I think, about 3/4 of their soybeans from Brazil and about 1/4 from the United States. And it seems that this year they have made their purchases a bit late, perhaps because they may have a bit of a surplus. But Trump may be speaking because he knows that the Chinese have not made some of those critical purchasing decisions. But I think he's got several purposes in mind. One, this is a good sign to a certain extent because it means that the haggling for a trade deal, beyond just talking about rare earths, is now going on. Second, Trump is speaking on behalf of his constituents. MAGA country is in farm areas. Agricultural people are very much Trump voters. He wants to support them. And then third, maybe this is reaching a bit, but I can imagine that it's no secret that Trump and President Lula in Brazil are not getting along very well. And he may be trying to poke President Lula a bit by trying to threaten to take away sales.
Yes, and President Trump really seems to be trying to shake up the entire BRICS construct and narrative, and India is a case in point as well. We can continue that conversation about India later, Jeff, and how it fits into China, especially with oil. But when you consider, as you said, all of this is not a coincidence. President Trump and the administration seem to be incentivizing and putting these compromises and concessions on the table. So what would a phase one style deal look like in terms of a phased withdrawal or dismantling of the tariffs?
Well, first of all, there are some non-trade issues that have been lumped into the trade discussions. And here I'm thinking about fentanyl, which is really a law enforcement issue, and rare earths is a national security issue. I think there will be some kind of a resolution there. With fentanyl, there will be some, Trump may take away some of those fentanyl tariffs. And I think rare earths is very important to the United States. Beyond that, I think what we are looking at is China reselling the phase one deal to the U.S. So the components are that there's going to be some reciprocal tariff number that will be attached to all of this. There will be probably Chinese purchases of American goods, and that's where the agricultural products fit into this. There may be Chinese investments into the United States if there can be agreement on investments in non-sensitive sectors where the Chinese investment does not create a dependency within the U.S. supply chain. And then there are going to be industrial policy issues, and I think China will do here what they did in the phase one deal. There will be very narrow market openings. There will be very modest regulatory progress on things like IPR or phytosanitary conditions, things like that. But there will be no major progress on the issues that really matter. And that's industrial policy, that's subsidies, overcapacity. And I don't think the Chinese are going to budge on that very much.
Yes, and that was my point. There are formidable challenges related to overcapacity and the exchange rate and critical minerals. Is this going to be a durable agreement then, Jeff? And I say durable because so far we've seen non-binding framework agreements that have been kept seemingly deliberately vague, causing no end of confusion since it allows Washington to really move the goalposts. What guarantee is there that Beijing will secure a full and a final deal with Washington with the minimum of caveats?
Well, I think Beijing has been very cautious in dealing with Trump. They now have quite a bit of experience in how he operates and what his commitments look like and what they mean down the road. I do not think that there will be a summit meeting unless there is a full written understanding of what the terms are. I think both to protect Xi Jinping from possible embarrassment and to prevent Trump from moving the goalposts either at the summit or even after the summit and causing quite a bit of discomfort. So I think that that's going to be mandatory. They're going to have to come up with something like that. In the past, I recall when Jiang Zemin came to the United States the first time, he stopped in various cities and there was an ongoing negotiation of the joint statement, which was the key document that went on right up till the very day of the summit. But I don't think that's going to happen here. I think the distrust is very deep.
Let's talk about that, Jeff. When you look at what's happened with Switzerland, with Brazil, with India, is there a non-trivial risk that US talks with China could break down if like New Delhi, Beijing does not play ball and these talks don't head President Trump's way? And India, like I said, is Exhibit A in that regard, and President Trump is now attaching foreign policy or non-economic outcomes to these trade negotiations.
There is certainly a policy that talks could break down, and in fact, if you look at the history of Trump's negotiations with China, that has happened before. In 2019, they negotiated a 150-page document and were about to finalize it when the Chinese said, nope, we're walking away from that. So the talks have broken down before and could very well do so again. I think that, and that's why I think that it's key that there be something written and a full agreement Indeed. Before they actually travel.
Jeff, on balance, how confident are you that we will have the makings of a U.S. China deal, phase 1, 2.0, to mix my numerals, by the time there is a summit between Xi and Trump later this year? Have you got a time frame? What's your baseline expectation?
Yeah, I'd say it's 80% likely that something will happen. I think it's also 80% likely that it will be very unsatisfactory and not really solve many of the problems. It will just be a Band-Aid that will patch things up for a little while. But, the infection is going to persist. The patient will still be sick. And we will be, trade war will grind on indefinitely into the future. And I hate to say that, but I think that's where we're going to be.